2025 NFL schedule is officially out. We're going to be diving into the quarterbacks the Seahawks are going to be facing this upcoming season, ranking all 14 and maybe 15 or 16 when we throw them in there with competitions. That's coming your way here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, the host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined here for our annual son-daughter podcast. Not son-daughter, son-mother. Such a great.
Do I look that good for my age? Yeah, all right.
Anyway, I'm glad to have my mother, Trina Chapman-Smith, diehard sports fan. It's where I get my love for sports from. She joins once every year, and we are going to be diving into all of the quarterbacks on the Seahawks schedule. We won't hold it against her that she is a Miami Dolphins fan, but she does know all the quarterbacks.
Go Fins.
Going to know all the quarterbacks the Seahawks are going up against. Yeah. So a special thanks to all of our listeners, whether you are tuning in from Renton, Washington, or Corona, Indiana, near your neck of the woods. Greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Let's dive into it. Let's start talking some quarterbacks. We are going to be looking at all 14 opponents for the Seahawks. Obviously, the 3 NFC West teams, they're going to play them twice. So we don't have 17 QBs. There are a few teams with quarterback controversies. I'm going to start my list here at number 14. Pittsburgh Steelers coming in dead last for me. Now, if Aaron Rodgers signs, Aaron Rodgers, even at this stage of his career, I think is still better than some of the QBs on this list. I don't know that I'd put Pittsburgh that much higher, though, with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. Mason Rudolph wasn't good for the Titans last year. He has been a journeyman. I don't see that being a situation for Pittsburgh that is going to be a tenable one. In fact, I would be surprised if Will Howard's not starting later in the year. But I think since these teams play week 2, I'm going Mason Rudolph. He's going to be the experienced veteran. So I've got him coming in dead last on my list.
Me too. But I think, why not Kirk Cousins? Why didn't the Steelers make a play for him? I mean, I think he's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Great leader with a phenomenal, long tenured coach. But I don't know. I agree with you. Aaron would improve their lot, not by much. And I just have a feeling he's toxic enough at this point in his career. I think it's kind of like dropping Madonna in a gathering of nuns. I'm just not sure it fits. But
I do like the Kirk Cousins idea. I think that it would make some sense. He wants to start Pittsburgh. He would instantly be the best quarterback there. Oh, yeah. Honestly, I think he's better than Aaron Rodgers at this point in their respective careers. So that's one to keep an eye on. Next up on the list for me, it's surprising this is not dead last, but it's just the Mason Rudolph. We know who he is. New Orleans, at least they have a third rounder in Tyler Shuck, and they also have Spencer Rattler. I think Tyler Shuck is going to win that starting job. They picked him in the third round, even though he is coming off of a Van Wilder college career where he was in college for 7 years. He is a experienced quarterback, obviously, and they just need somebody that can get the job done. And Spencer Rattler, I didn't see quite enough last year to suggest he's a starter. So I think Tyler Shuck is going to be Kellen Moore's guy. I've got that at number 13 just because I do think there might be some upside there that Mason Rudolph, at this point, I'm not seeing.
Yeah, same for me. I think, the thing about Rattler, didn't he play at 3 schools?
Yeah, he was.
And I'm not sure a guy that jumps around that much is ready to take the reins of an NFL team. And I told Corbin earlier, I think I could see the Saints. I hate the word tanking, but Arch Manning would look awful good in the same jersey his grandpa wore. So
I think it's possible. I don't know if they're going to actively be tanking, but it is a team that is definitely entering a rebuild.
Struggling. Yeah.
And up next in my list, this is one that could go up depending how the season plays out. But I got to have Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick. He's going to be on the top of the list at number 12 here. I'm going to have him obviously ahead of New Orleans rookie quarterback. I just look at the supporting cast. I do like former Seahawk Tyler Lockett being there. That's a nice security blanket for him. They drafted a couple receivers. I just don't see enough talent around him for him to flourish early. And there are some things that I think could see him struggle a little bit early. So I got Cam Ward coming in at 12, but that is one that could potentially move up a few spots if he starts off well.
Well, maybe you can talk about 11. I have him flip-flopped between 11 and 12. I don't know a lot about Ward, honestly, other than great upside, great talent. But if we can say you've got at 11 for the Colts, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, I have them at 12 because I'm concerned they also have Riley Leonard in the mix. And, I know you don't think he has much of a shot, but I watched his magic at Notre Dame, my home state. I don't know, there's something about that guy. He's going to make this a three-headed monster, which is to me not tenable to be really good for the year. So,
and I don't know that I'd say monster. I'd say three-headed whatever, because I still think Anthony Richardson, I'm still holding out hope that all the tools he's got are going to translate, but I don't feel like the Colts have done anything to help him.
Agreed.
Benching him last year the way they did, I don't think helped him. And I think you look at this year bringing Daniel Jones in, I don't think opening a competition like that, I don't think it helps him. And I think we know who Daniel Jones is. So I've got the Colts at number 11 on my list. I think Richardson's going to be the guy. I think Indianapolis is not going to be willing to give up on him just yet. And coming in at number 10 for me, closing out our first 5 here. This guy is a rookie, even though he's in year 2, didn't play last year. J.J. McCarthy, I loved coming out of Michigan, and the guy is just a winner. He's joining an extremely talented team that Sam Darnold led to 14 wins last year and a playoff berth. I want to see what he looks like early in the year because he hasn't played NFL football, but I love the leadership. I think he has underrated arm strength. He's very accurate. He can run the ball some. And again, Minnesota, he's not going to have to carry the load. And he's got the best receiver in the NFL, in my opinion, Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
So McCarthy's at number 10. If we revisited this middle of the season, he might be in my top 7 or 8 because I do think the potential is there, and he has the best supporting cast of any of the quarterbacks from this top 5.
No, I can't add much to it. I have him at 10 also, and I think he's got all the goods.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a really fun quarterback
and a great coach to coach him up, whatever's needed, right?
And I think, we talked about we're going to split this into 5s, but I really want to dedicate the end of the show for the top 3 players that we have, because I think that those quarterbacks are the ones that are going to be the toughest matchups for Seattle. I'm going to go with Bryce Young at number 9 on my list. And some may say, well, Bryce Young was benched just like Anthony Richardson was last year. There's one very notable difference. Bryce Young came back and played like a different guy the last 8 or 9 games. He was fantastic. Carolina was one of the most improved teams in the second half last year. Former Seahawks assistant Dave Canales is their head coach, and he is a quarterback whisperer. He has done phenomenal work. Geno Smith, one of the big reasons he broke out in Seattle was because of Dave Canales. I just think Bryce Young, you're starting to see why he was the number 1 pick. He's playing with confidence, and I think it's going to continue going into his 3rd season, his 2nd full year with Dave Canales. So I've got Bryce Young coming in at number 9 on my list.
Yeah, I have him flip-flopped with your number 8 pick. If you want to go into Michael Penix for Falcons now, and I have Penix at 9, Young at 8. I'm not quite sold on Michael Penix yet. I think you're a bigger fan than I am. I think he's a great kid, a lot to prove though. And they still got Kirk Cousins there. So how does that play out if Kirk Cousins doesn't go anywhere?
Yeah. I don't see that being a dynamic that's going to impact things although if he struggled.
You don't see them pulling the plug and going for the vet.
And maybe they do a Bryce Young and Andy Dalton type thing. I don't see that happening. But we'll get to that here in a moment here in Locked On Seahawks, why I have Michael Penix ahead of Bryce Young going into the season, but I have them back to back. We're going to get to our next cluster of quarterbacks. That'll be coming up next here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's kind of the atmosphere you have to experience live. This year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get the seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees. Game Time is a total game changer. Here's why I use Game Time. They offer last-minute deals that can save me up to 60% off buying on the day before attending sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events. I actually did that buying tickets for my wife and my mom and I to see the Colorado Avalanche a few years. They did lose 7-0 in that game, but got a 60+% discount. The all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay, and I always get to see my views for my seat before I purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price. It's guaranteed. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. It is our annual mother-son episode.
Good
where
job.
Trina Chapman-Smith, my mother and I, we're going to be diving into all the quarterbacks the Seahawks are going to be facing. We've looked at our first 6, and you and I flipped a little bit in terms of who we had at 9 and 8. I had Bryce Young at number 9. I do love what Dave Canales is doing with him, but I look at the Atlanta Falcons situation with Michael Penix Jr. They almost beat Washington the end of the season last year, one of the final games, which could have potentially knocked the Commanders out of the playoffs, which they ended up going to the NFC title game. Penix showed some moxie, some guts in that game. And also look at the fact he's got Kyle Pitts at some point is going to awaken. Like, the guy's too talented not to have a big season. Drake London's a really good receiver. I think that they've got a top 5 running back in Bijan Robinson. Their offensive line solid. I think the supporting cast is there for Michael Penix Jr. to have a really big first full season as a starter. So I could see this being either way with him and Bryce Young in the NFC South, but I've got Penix in at number 8, and I know that you have Bryce Young there.
Yeah, but you may be right about Penix. I saw him more when he was at IU at the beginning of his career, and I could never figure out why IU just didn't take off with him. All the skills. There may have been an injury involved. I think, but I would love to see him make it big. I mean, but I haven't seen him play enough as a pro to go with anything other than what you said.
Yeah, but I do think Bryce Young, look at what he did last year. There's a bigger sample size. The second half, he was throwing darts. Carolina was playing much better football. So I've got him coming in at 9, and then I've got Michael Penix at 8. Now, number 7, this is one I actually might talk about a little bit more extensively here. Trevor Lawrence, former number 1 overall pick out of Clemson. I think Trevor Lawrence has the talent to be in the top 4 or 5 on this list. I think that he has shown glimpses of that. And in his defense, Jacksonville has not helped him. They have not put a supporting cast consistently around him. I don't think the coaching has been where it needs to be to maximize his ability. There are throws that he makes that you're just like, oh my goodness, I can see why he was the number 1 overall pick. And then last year, before he had the injury at the end of the season, he's had some durability things. The O-line's been a problem, but there's too many plays that I see. I'm like, that's not who I saw in college. Yeah. It's not the Trevor Lawrence making smart
decision-making was off.
I think he needs a confidence boost, but I expect that is going to happen with Liam Cohen as the head coach. If you saw Baker Mayfield, more on him later. Last season, Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. And Trevor Lawrence Baker Mayfield had a fantastic season, 40 touchdown passes. I think Liam Cohen is going to have a big impact with Trevor Lawrence. I expect that having Travis Hunter, I don't care if he's playing some on defense, he's going to be playing a lot of offense. I think that the Jags, Brian Thomas Jr., they've got weapons. I think Liam Cohen's going to be able to get this quarterback's confidence back. And I think if that happens, Trevor Lawrence can play like a number 1 overall pick, and there's been glimpses of that, but he needs consistency. I like the supporting cast. I have him at 7. I could see him climbing on this list.
I have him at 5 because I think he is going to be resurgent, and Travis Hunter is a lot of the reason. I don't know how you don't have a quarterback of his skill set and give him a guy who seems like he can do it all. Yeah. And the excitement that Jacksonville is going to create with that pairing is something it's going to be fun to watch, I think.
Who do you have coming in at number 7?
I actually have Murray at 7. I have had issues just with Murray, just durability, size. I just think his decision-making sometimes leaves a lot to be desired. So I have them flip-flopped there.
Yeah, I've got Kyler Murray at number 6 on my list. And the issue is that the thing is there is a formula that I feel like smart teams that have the players to do it, they collapse the interior pocket and they contain the outside so that he can't get outside. He can't scramble. Seattle, knock on wood, they have done a really good job of this the last few years, but it seems like there's kind of a formula to be able to take him away. And I don't care what anybody says, height does matter at the quarterback position. And we have seen exceptions where guys have been able to succeed.
Yeah. Not everybody's Drew Brees, right?
I mean, Russell Wilson's had a very good career. But I feel like Kyler Murray, it's just a different level. They list him 5'10". I don't think he's 5'10".
I think he's my height, and I'm pushing 5'6".
He is a
very
small,
big guy.
He's a small quarterback. Yeah. I think the athleticism is incredible. He has a great arm. He has a live arm from his baseball background. I just wonder about, he does make some questionable decisions sometimes, especially when I don't think he can see. I think that impacts things. So I've got him at number 6. Coming in at 5 for me is the quarterback that I think is going to really blossom in year 3, and that is C.J. Stroud. I talked in an earlier episode how excited I am for Seahawks and Texans to play on Monday Night Football. One of the big reasons why is C.J. Stroud. He was my number 1 QB in that class a few years ago.
And I have him at 4. Yeah. I am very high on him.
Yeah, I think C.J. Stroud, he had a lot of injuries around him last year. They've done some things to help their offensive line. They draft Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, who's one of my favorite receivers. They're going to have Nico Collins back at receiver. They've got a couple decent tight ends. I just think C.J. Stroud is going to be a real problem for a long time. So I've got him at number 5 on my list. Who do you had Lawrence at 5. Let's talk number 4, because you had Stroud at 4.
I actually have Purdy at 6.
Ooh.
I think Brock Purdy is a phenomenal guy. He is, of course, overperformed any expectations. I think he's extremely dependent on his supporting cast. I think if Christian McCaffrey stays healthy all year, big if, I think Brock Purdy is more like number 4. If McCaffrey goes down and Purdy
don't have Deebo Samuel anymore.
Exactly. And Purdy has to do too much, that's when I would worry for the 49ers.
Yeah, I've actually got Purdy at 4, but you make some very good arguments. I'm just leaning more on the side that I'm expecting the supporting cast. They're going to have a healthy Brandon Ayuk back. McCaffrey's going to be back. They've added some pieces at receiver and in the backfield. They've got a solid offensive line. I just think, I don't know that he's ever going to be a guy that can play into top 5 consideration for me, because I look at him as a very high floor, not necessarily a super high ceiling.
And it's nothing against him. Like I said, I think he's at the ceiling almost of what he can do. I don't think his athleticism matches up. Like CJ Stroud, to me, if you were at the drawing board, I mean, if you're God making a quarterback, you make him look like CJ Stroud. He's got the body, the arm talent, the brain, the football IQ. Athleticism, leadership. That's why I have them reversed.
If this was all about upside for like the next 3 years, I would have had Stroud ahead of him. But I'm looking at this season purely for the Seahawks in 2025. Logical. So for me, I have to have Brock Purdy at the 4 spot, and then I've got Stroud at 5, Kyler Murray at 6. This is a very fluid ranking for me, because again, I think Trevor Lawrence with Liam Cohen can absolutely have the best season of his career. We saw that with Baker Mayfield. I think Kyler Murray, he can really flash. That's the thing. He can look like a top 5 QB for a couple of weeks.
Oh, he's so fun to watch when he's on. I think other teams are afraid of him.
But he's so inconsistent. And it feels like he's always tailed off in the second half of seasons too. And I don't know if that's a size thing. I don't know if that later in the season, preparation comes into play too. Yep. So there's a lot of things that I think are holding him from being higher there. And some of them he can control. Some of it can't. Like, he's not randomly going to come in and unless his hair is going to be up to like 6'3". I don't think he's going to be able to grow. So
and he is playing in Phoenix, which is hotter than we know what.
Yeah, but they at least play in an indoor stadium.
So. True, but I'm sure they're doing some of their work outdoor. It probably takes its toll too.
Yeah, we're going to get to our top 3 quarterbacks on the Seahawks rankings. That is going to be coming up next, and we're going to have a lot more opportunity to talk about these 3 players and why we have them atop the leaderboard. And I think you and I are in very similar positions, but we might have some differences of opinion in terms of the top 3. We're going to get to that coming up next year on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. That's your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined by my mother, Trina Chapman-Smith. It's our special annual once-a-year quarterback ranking episode. We always get excited about this, a chance to really deep dive into it. I know your team, the Dolphins, will be facing plenty of these quarterbacks as well. So we've done our research. We know which QBs that we look most highly upon. we are now to our top three. And the reason we wanted to hold this for the end, because this is the cream of the crop. These are the best quarterbacks on Seattle's schedule. And I know based on our listeners, hey, we see your comments. We respect your comments. I know there's a lot of people that don't have Baker Mayfield in the top three discussion here. But listen, I just think when you consider what he did the last 2 years in Tampa Bay, 40 touchdown passes last year. I know he threw 16 picks, but they threw the ball a lot, and that was part of it. I think you're finally seeing Baker Mayfield play like the former Heisman contender that he was, the star quarterback at Oklahoma, and he's got a team that believes in him, an organization that believes in him. And Tampa Bay, I've got Mayfield at number 3 in part because of the supporting cast. Mike Evans, I know he's getting later in his career, but he still had 1,000 yards last year. He's still very good. They're getting a healthy Chris Godwin back. When he's healthy, is a dynamic player. They also have McMillan from Washington that they drafted 2 years ago that I think is going to have a really good second season. And, oh, by the way, they drafted Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State in the first round. So think about all the weapons at his disposal. They've also got Otten at tight end. I mean, they are just loaded in the passing game. They're not going to be changing up what they do. I mean, they'll mix some run game in, but they are going to sling the pigskin around, and Baker Mayfield is going to do it with a lot of confidence. So I've got Baker Mayfield at number 3 on my list.
I have him at 2. I have always loved him. I think I liked him more.
You liked him more than I did in the
when
draft.
he first came out of school. I mean, he's got tremendous guts. I think his team would run through a glass fire volcano for him. I really think his players play for him. And the other thing, he can tuck the ball and go if he has to. He's got some running. He's not a bad runner. So, you're right. All those weapons, and you combine that with his confidence, I think that's a combustible combination for Tampa to really take off with him. And that's why I have him at 2.
And they've won 10 games each of the last 2 years. I think that team is a dark horse to compete in the NFC this year. I really do. Now, they could have the Liam Cohen effect on the other side there because he was a really good offensive coordinator for the Bucs, and he is now the head coach of the Jaguars. But I think the confidence there is going to roll over, and I expect that Baker Mayfield is going to put up really good numbers. At number 2, I've got to go with Matthew Stafford. This list is, I will say this is probably the youngest crop of quarterbacks I have ever seen the Seahawks play against. It is a very young group, some really exciting young players. There's a number that are unproven. You've got some guys like, it's crazy. Trevor Lawrence is the same age as Tyler Shuck, and he's been in the league for, it seems like ever. And Trevor Lawrence is still a pretty young quarterback, so there's room for some of these guys to grow. Kyler Murray's only 27 going on 28. There's some really young QBs here. You can't say that about Matthew Stafford. He's going to be 37 this season, but he is still an incredibly talented, dangerous quarterback. And his ability to throw the football from multiple arm angles, the no-look passes, his cerebralness, reading the defense, and he's got moxie. It's just the guy can go into any environment. He can win. And I look at the Rams. I know they don't have Cooper Kupp. Seattle's got him now, but they went out and got Devontae Adams. The weapons are still going to be there. Puka Nakua's an absolute star. They got some good tight ends there.
And Sean McVay.
Matthew Stafford coming in at number 2 for me. In terms of skill level, he is still one of the very best, in my opinion.
And his durability, I think, for a guy that consider his high school teammate, Clayton Kershaw, in baseball, how much he's been hurt and is still hanging in there in the MLB. How much has Stafford been disabled?
He's been hurt a few times, but
a few games here and there. But his durability, the reason I didn't put him at 2 is his age. I mean, if he does get an injury now, it's going to knock him down further. And I feel like Mayfield probably bounces back easier if he gets beat up.
And you can make an argument Mayfield overall might have the better supporting cast, too.
But they're both, like you said,
got talent.
Devontae Adams, that's where I agree with Aaron Rodgers. That guy's still one of the 3 best receivers in the game, probably.
He just needs better quarterback play than he got from
Matt
Aaron Rodgers last year.
Matt Stafford could throw a meteor from here to Mars, I think. His arm is still that good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we are in agreement, though, and you and I are probably going to gush about this guy for about 5 minutes. And Jaden Daniels is coming in at number 1 on my list because, to me, this is the perfect combination of a guy that is really young, just won Rookie of the Year. I think he had the most impressive rookie season by a quarterback that I've ever seen. I just came in, especially when you consider when Russell Wilson came to Seattle, the Seahawks were kind of on the up and up at that point, and it felt like they just needed a quarterback. The Commanders were just lost, and they had been lost for most of the last 2 decades. And for him to come in, he completely changed the culture there with his leadership. And then you look at what he does on the field. You want to talk about a guy that can make all the throws. And I know he had the Hail Mary that
with legs this big around. That kills me. That guy's body.
He doesn't look like he would throw the ball.
No, he looks like he could break, but he's obviously not that fragile.
But he's incredibly tough. There were a couple touchdowns he threw last year where he was nailed by pass rushers and then delivered absolute dimes. He will step into contact, into hits, and he will fire strikes. But I think what makes him truly special is his running ability to go with that. I mean, he can beat you in the pocket. This is not a guy that has to improvise or scramble to create plays, which I think Caleb Williams, you have to do that a lot with. I feel like Jaden Daniels, you can run a in-structure offense and he can thrive because of his passing ability. But you can do improvised running with him. If he has to get out of the pocket, he can do it, but you could run design runs. He does a really good job of getting down and protecting himself with that lean build. His ability to run the ball, he almost had 1,000 rushing yards last year to go with the passing numbers. To me, and that's one of the reasons that Week 9 against the Commanders was number 1 of my most intriguing games. It's because of that man. Quarterbacks win in this league. That is the position that you win with most of the time. Jaden Daniels, to me, I can already make an argument he's a top 5 caliber QB. I could see him being in that mix with Patrick Mahomes for the next several years where we're talking, and Josh Allen, like top 3 quarterbacks in the league. I could absolutely see him playing into that this year. To me, this was actually pretty easy to put him at number 1.
I really think if you were told you have one player to start a team with in 2025, this is the guy I would choose. I mean,
I would agree with you.
Like you said, his youth, his football IQ, his leadership skills, the way he is off the field, in addition to what he does on. And you throw him into Washington, D.C., for heaven's sakes, what's a bigger pressure cooker in the world than playing in D.C.? But D.C. hasn't had a good team for a long time. I mean, a really good team.
And this used to be a very proud franchise that won Super Bowls.
You better believe it. So I feel like he took all that pressure, too, and acted as if it wasn't there. Yeah. And that impressed me, too, all the way through. And, I think he's another guy that, if you've got him and you're his teammate, you are never worried you can't win that game as long as you've got him.
And I will say this. I had him as my number 1 QB in the draft class in 2024. I loved what I saw in his film at LSU. I loved the toughness. I loved the arm strength, the accuracy, the anticipation.
The attitude.
Yeah. But when I knew that he was, I didn't think he was going to have the season he had last year, but when I knew he was going to be really good as a rookie, Bobby Wagner, knowing him personally from covering him in Seattle for a long time, the way that Bobby Wagner embraced this kid very quickly in training camp, like, you have to earn Bobby Wagner's respect. And the fact that early that he was really becoming friends with this kid and really respected him, that told me all I needed to know, that if Bobby Wagner sees that in this kid, he is going to be special. And he went out, and those were the 2 leaders of that football team. Dan Quinn on the sidelines too, but on the field, it's Bobby Wagner, the seasoned vet, perennial All-Pro, and it was Jaden Daniels who really took that entire. And oh, by the way, he now has Deebo Samuel to go with Terry McLaurin.
Just in case he needed a little more to be a little better.
And I know the Seahawks in particular, Deebo Samuel has been their biggest nuisance the last several years with the 49ers. Add him to that offense with all the other pieces they have. They're going to be able to run the ball. They're a team that has the QB running element. So to me, Jaden Daniels, this was an easy one for me at number 1. And then behind him, I've got Stafford at 2, Baker Mayfield at 3. And I think you could make some compelling arguments for a few of the guys that we had behind him. But to me, this is Jaden Daniels and really everyone else is the way
that's exactly how I saw this list. I thought, really? Because like you said, we were both shocked when we really looked at this, how young these guys are.
It's an incredibly young quarterback league right now.
It's incredibly so. And like you said, and you were in diapers, I think, when Dan Marino was a rookie or close. My team, the best arm of all time, I think, for just pure arm strength as a passer. Marino had played for a terrible team as a rookie and still put up some pretty great numbers. So I don't know if anyone else thought this when they saw Daniels. Would they make it to the NFC title game?
NFC title
and
game.
Came this close to getting the Super Bowl. And your dad and I both looked at each other like, how were the Commanders this close to going to the Super Bowl? And we both looked at each other. Jaden Daniels.
It's the
That's
QB.
it's the X factor.
QB X factor, and I think he
Yeah.
is just scratching the surface of how good he's
Yeah.
going to be with his work ethic, his mindset, and just he can do it all. He can do everything. So easily number one on both of our lists. We may have had a few disputes when it comes to Mayfield, Stafford, Purdy, Stroud, and you can make compelling arguments for all those players, but I don't think you can make a compelling argument to put anybody else other than Jaden Daniels at number one on the Seahawks schedule for opposing quarterbacks, regardless of supporting cast. I just think he is a very special talent. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You will not be following Trina Chapman-Smith on X or Blue Sky.
Unless you come to Auburn, Indiana, and you need a healthcare provider.
Yeah, football injuries or non-football injuries. Anyway, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. We've got 6 NFL Draft Coach Series interviews, most recently speaking with Dan Larson, the offensive coordinator, former offensive line coach for North Dakota State. Check out all 6 of those there on our YouTube channel and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. When we come back on Monday, we got to start shifting gears towards OTAs, and we're going to look at the nose tackle position, where the Seahawks stand there, and much more. Make sure that you listen in and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go Hawks.